Hey everyone, and welcome to Handing the Shame Back. This is a podcast dedicated 100% to the adult survivors of child sexual abuse in Aotearoa and globally. As with all shows, there is a trigger warning, so what you're about to see may trigger you. If that is the case, please stop watching, go to the show notes below, and you'll be guided to some resource and help. Have I got a guest for you tonight? So meet the lovely Taylah Ma. Now she is the sister of Nay Masters, who we have had on the show as a survivor. So Tay is a supporter of her, and she is also a Reiki practitioner and healer. Welcome to the show, Tay.
Hi, hello.
Hey,
Thank you
great.
for having me.
Great to have you here. Thank you so much, and very much looking forward to having a conversation with you and perhaps talking to you as a supporter, as a sister, which is a very close relationship from my understanding, and just understanding what that has been like for you, what you have observed. So I guess maybe useful for me to start with, when did you first realize that something had happened to your beautiful sister?
Um, I well, we have a 13 years difference between us. So when it pretty much started when she was in her teens, more so teens and in her early 20s. And I just realized that she wasn't doing okay. And it really wasn't more spoken about until I was older, in my late teens, that I could really be able to understand the capacity of what she experienced. Um, when you're spoken to at a young age, how to comprehend such awful things to have happened to your sister,
Yeah.
or anyone that's close to you, it's it actually drove me to kind of go into studying psychology as well. It's what drove my undergrad, to have an understanding of why things had happened to her, or try and understand how it could help her, because you feel a little bit useless as a child to a grown adult, be like, how can I help you? And sometimes it's just, yeah, it wasn't until also again in my 20s that we recapped over about what had happened to her, from an adult perspective, that she told me more of what had happened. And there was a lot of like grief as a sister that you go through for
Yeah.
her to have ever experienced that. Things
Yes.
that she'd even hidden as well, because that's the journey she was going through, to be vulnerable and open herself. And um but yeah, I think it was around that time. And I think now we've gone on this journey together, and to see her flourish has been phenomenal. And yeah, it's been a great journey to be with her on. Yeah.
So it's interesting what you're saying, Tay. You know, you're talking about the grief you would have felt or you did feel as her sister, and
Mm,
just, I guess, understanding as you got older what the impact was on her.
mm,
And you commented, about how you could see she was really struggling in her teens and 20s.
mm.
What did you notice? How would you kind of describe the behavior that you saw?
Um, I think a lot of the behavior is very normal, in some ways too. I won't say normal, it's definitely not normal, but uh, it would be, I know when she was at peace and when she was in the turmoil,
Mm.
um, for when you have a kind of trauma bond of even intergenerational trauma that comes through, she definitely, it would come through as how she presents herself, but she has come through with a lot of her healing to have those coping mechanisms to help her through. And now she shares it with all the people that she does her healing with, which is phenomenal.
It is
Yeah,
phenomenal. She's
yeah,
been able to turn that around, and I guess there's nothing truer than you fully understand the trauma,
mm,
if you have survived the trauma. So that's
mhm,
perhaps why she's able to be so successful in her
mhm,
work. You talk about the intergenerational bond of trauma. Are you able to, just for our fabulous audience watching, describe what you mean by that? Because that may be a term for some of our viewers they are not aware of. Well, how
mhm.
does that show itself? What is that?
Um, Definitely with amongst my family, I have definitely witnessed in growing up is that the pain that hasn't been healed, and how it comes across and certain dynamics as well in our family. And sometimes it can be hard to have relationships because they're not mirrored the same as it should do. And uh, healthy relationship look alike. Um, but I think once you realize that it wasn't their fault, the way that they are behaving is out of their control during the time, you don't need to live with it. And you can, what's the word? Like, you don't have to live through their trauma. You can break that away, but you can still be supportive and being present. And yeah, and if they need to seek advice, you can help support through that way as well. Mm.
Yeah, I suppose, and as you say, with the closeness too, it's really hard to separate yourself fully from that, because
Mhm.
your heart will be breaking as
Mm,
well. When you think about the role that you took, and for the audience, if you guys are siblings or sisters of survivors, what Tay's sharing is really gonna add some value to your own experience, and perhaps make more sense of it, is potentially the outcome. So, uh, Tay, at what point did you kind of recognize that, that the best thing you could do, apart from being with your sister, was to encourage her to seek help?
I I don't think because I was we have such a age gap between us.
Yes.
She was already doing the work
Okay.
by the time I could advise her on it.
Yes.
She had been doing this journey for 10 years. Um, but if if I could be at some ways is that you're always going to be supported, even if you're like the littlest sister or the youngest sibling. Sometimes just being there through the cries and the laughter and the rants where they want to do flight, freeze, fight, and just getting them to regulate their emotions. I think anyone wants that. Is regulating in a safe space that's not judgmental, that's not criticizing, that's not even dangerous as well, feeding into those toxic or dysregulated emotions that we're all feeling at that time.
Yeah.
Because you don't realize how hard it is to find, and because people want to serve themselves sometimes, and yeah, it's just being there for the person without any of your own baggage. It really,
That's really hard because it
yeah.
usually is all about me.com, as people, that's what we tend to
Mhm.
do, and we can only give if we have something to give,
Mhm.
and I think that can be really challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was one of the hardest things for you? Can you describe an incident you may have witnessed, in your 20s, when
Mhm.
you were able to talk more on an adult level with Nay? Can you describe perhaps an incident that, I guess, made you more aware or confirmed that, wow, it's been a tough childhood for her trying to survive this?
I think there's not one pinpointed when you're brought up with this. So there's no one pinpointed moment where this is tough and this is really overwhelming for her, and this is such a terrible experience. I think because I've always known there's been little bits and they just kept on coming through to her as she was growing up, that I think it got to a point when I could see her working through her healing. Was where I was like, okay, I can help you through this as well, in the best way I know how, and that's through being present through listening, or being that shoulder to cry on, or helping out with the girls if necessary, or doing a Reiki session with her. Like, yeah, there I can't really pinpoint one, as
No.
it's been a lifetime of being like, "Oh, wow, there's more to the story. Oh, wow, I'm of age now. Um, I can't believe this has happened to you." Even I think we had our first workshop together, and that was only last year, and I still found out more details because I think I may have heard it, but as a child, you become desensitized to those things,
Yes. Yeah.
because it's overwhelming to hear such trauma to happen to
Yes.
someone that you're so loved,
Yeah.
who you love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Mm,
quite tricky. I think one of the common themes for us as survivors, and what supporters can point out, is as well that dissociative um, thing that happens to us, and it's more common than we think. And to bring a survivor back into, grounded back into their body, can be a challenging situation. I guess when we think about the symptomology of, impact on survivors, um, I'm just wondering, like I've mentioned association. I guess I'm also looking at the hypervigilance, or feeling different, or feeling very alone and isolated. Were
mm,
there any of those that you kind of saw manifest, and now that you look back, you think, yes, of course, that said it all?
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
there definitely was, moments throughout the years where there was the loneliness, um, the hyper dysregulation, the hyper, security around her children, which is, of course, you don't want your kids to go over to other people's places, not after what you experience.
Yeah.
You can only trust certain people. You become to understand that reasoning behind it, because when you're younger, you're like, oh, why can't the girls go and have sleepovers? I have sleepovers all the time. I'm safe.
Yes. Yes.
I'm good. But like when you don't have those experiences, you don't know how to empathize with that.
Yeah.
Um, so I used to talk to my niece and I'm like, "I don't understand why you don't have sleepovers." "Oh, okay."
Now
Now
you
it goes
do.
back to the parent,
Yeah.
and it goes back to the, trauma, and, yeah, your eyes become open, and you can see the behavior and patterns that come through parenting even, and how even she shows up as a sister, she was super protective of us. Like,
Yes.
yeah, and, even some of the things she would wear would be conservative, that, made me be like, "Oh, why is she wearing that? She's got, like, this beautiful body, I don't know why she doesn't flaunt her," kind of thing, and then I go, "Oh, wait, this is why.
Yeah. But it's
Yeah.
really useful what you're saying, Tay, because, you've already described perhaps three contributing factors that really Nay was showing and as being a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. So one is that hypervigilance and protectiveness,
Yeah.
Another was protection by, not showing off that fabulous body as you described,
Yeah.
because it didn't feel safe, Another was people around, like who would be safe for the children to spend time with, whether they were overnight stays or not. So all of those are hallmarks, and I guess I'm interested from a sister's perspective because you could see that behaviour, although really wise and made lots of sense, was also quite hard,
Yeah.
and she was suffering. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you don't realize or come to understand it. I probably won't even understand it still because I'm not a parent myself, but the protectiveness of her girls and
Yeah.
having to show up and for them, but without your own preconceived experiences and baggage, but that's how we all live, right? So we
Yes.
just that it's
Yeah.
something that's like a part of us, and I think that just never leaves us. And I think I do love the fact that we're forever healing. We're not just, oh, we're fixed now. It's part of us. That's who we are, and we just got to show up the best way we possibly can. And if we need to seek help or we need to find supporters like myself, you search out for those people, and
Yeah.
hopefully you're lucky enough to have one close by.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying. I think it's really powerful, and it makes a lot of sense. The showing up is without a doubt the most powerful thing
Mm,
you can do. And I suspect as supporters watching out there, how do you know when to weigh in? Because we know that if if she was feeling very protective and hyper protective of the children,
mm,
it there was a reason for it, but equally that you mentioned earlier, that kind of intergenerational trauma bond was potentially being highlighted as well.
mhm.
So how do you see that play out when you think about that? Um,
Um, when these when sur- when survivors do act upon these trigger points for themselves and behaviors, um, I think you're never going to get it right as a supporter. You're never going to get it right.
yeah.
You might get your head bitten off. You might end up getting told to fuck off or be
Yeah.
told that this is not what I needed, not what I wanted. But at the end of the day, if you can just be there and um, I think respectively saying, I'm just doing the best I possibly can. And like, whether you want to cry at me or swear at me, I'm still just going to be here.
Yeah.
I might need to take a moment to fill up my cup before I come back, but there's understanding. You didn't choose this life, these experiences.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of compassion and love that
I,
kind
l-
of.
I'm so loving hearing this,
Mm,
to be able to stand beside
mm,
even when it feels detrimental to you as a supporter, to say, I'm going to be here no matter what. And as you say, even if you have to take a few moments or a few days to
mm.
recalibrate or reconnect with yourself and
Oh, you're
come
only
back.
human.
Yeah. There is no perfect, well, apart from you and I, of course. No, no. And the survivors and supporters watching,
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful people that you are. And look, making sense of all of this is so powerful. The things that you're saying will connect with people, because sometimes when do you step away? When do you come back? When do you decide that this person is so dysregulated that the words coming out of their mouths aren't even them? They're just based on those 4Fs, I call them, the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn coping responses, the trauma-induced responses. So it must be very challenging as a supporter at times to understand, is what I'm seeing one of the 4Fs, or is this just, she's having a bad day and bugger you.
Yeah, I think you figure out when you're growing up. Well, like I said, we've been on this journey for a wee while.
Yes.
Her being 38 and 39 now and maybe 26. And I think when you've also had family members that have gone through the same experiences, you grow up a bit quicker. You hear the stories and you come to understand, like, what is rape and what is being a victim, and what is like I was doing child abuse speeches at 11 years old at school because the Kahu twins and Nina Glassy, like I was already learning way more than probably a normal 11-year-old would be doing the speeches on at school. But I think I was just more exposed quite earlier because of the traumas. Doesn't mean it was wrong to be exposed to it. It made me grow up a little bit faster to help others.
So as you're talking, I guess I'm wondering, are you thinking specifically nay? Are you referring to other people within family? Yeah, when you talk about this, so
it's other family members.
right.
Yeah, other family members. Just not Nay as well, but other family members who have had their fair share experiences, and definitely know of friends as well that have gone through such trauma as well. Yeah.
And I guess then it's no surprise that you've been drawn to Reiki and becoming a practitioner and healer in this space. So tell us a little bit about what you are doing now with Nay in this healing capacity.
I am under Whatu Manawa, her business, more as a contracted out Reiki practitioner. I work from home, providing a healing space, a safe space to reconnect with oneself. I have plans as well to do like a pōpua. It's really much like a vulva workshop of connecting with the tinana, your body. That's in the works at the moment. I just realized we have so much connection to our spirit coming through and a wairoa, and then the physical is usually around like fitness, but not a real connection to our own vulvas. And there's birth traumas and actual sexual traumas, and sometimes taboo religion that can put shame and negative energy on us. So I want to find a way that we can create and connect as wahine, as women, to connect back to our own bodies, because it's really fucking phenomenal. And we had the right to love our bodies and
yes, of
explore.
course. Yeah, of course. Oh, that's so beautiful, and you must be enjoying that process of learning more and discovering more and being able to help others through that. So you work in collaboration with Nay. You do run workshops together, or you used to run workshops together?
I co-facilitate, so I'm also just I she runs the whole program, and then I will usually help out where I can and assisting her so that it goes smoothly and just being this poor person again in that space.
Yeah,
So yeah, sometimes you don't really know what the energy or how people show up in the space because everyone's at different stages of where they are on their journey.
yes.
So it's nice to have a whole tribe to be
Yeah.
behind you as well. Mm.
And I can see the power of connection with self, because you would have to be in a specific, quite grounded, powerfully
Mm.
aware space to be able to do the healing with others and provide the coaching.
Um, don't get me wrong, it's very normal that we become ungrounded some
Yeah,
days.
yeah,
You need to come back to yourself.
yes,
I usually go to Renee's sound healings that she has at the yoga studio, and I get grounded from her, and then she comes to me and we do some cleansing with her. And um, yeah, it's really nice pairing for us to like help each other in a holistic way.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, and a beautiful gift to the world, I have to say. So, thinking about supporting sister, other family members, friends, it feels like your role in life has largely been determined or defined by supporting others and being able to hold the space for them. So it's probably not too too far a reach to suspect that you are ideally suited to doing this Reiki, because you are holding the space and allowing what needs to be healed to emerge. Um, do you, as we're talking and thinking about the supporter role and as a sister, what would you think would help our audience out there who perhaps are also brothers or sisters or family members of survivors? Are there any kind of tips or ideas you might give them to help support the survivor in their lives?
I wholeheartedly recommend um, to support another person. You need to support yourself as well through like I went through my own therapy to understand how to better show up for my sister. I read books about it, trying to educate myself, um, because you're never going to get it right, and you have to have compassion with yourself with that as well.
Yeah,
Um, because especially if you've never experienced it yourself, um, you can only empathize. And um, sometimes it might get thrown back in your face that you will never know, you will never understand. Um, and that's okay too,
yeah,
because you you are just there to really just be that solid person when their whole world is just chaotic and they just need some grounding.
yeah,
And I think the best way, honestly, it's just a crash course, been a crash course with finding out what works. But each survivor is different, and how you show up is being present, just being constantly present, um, or carving out that time as well. You're saying, I only have an hour as well to be with you, but I'm wholeheartedly here with you. No distractions.
yeah,
Tell me what you need.
yeah,
Um, because you can't sometimes take you can't take it back. The story, it's already been and gone. Um, if it's still currently happening, I definitely recommend seeking outside help, um, because it's hard when it's still carrying on as well.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, for me currently, it's still in the past. All you can do is really just be present with where they are at for their journey now.
Yeah.
Hope that
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
sense.
No, I agree. I think if you can give from a full cup, you are likely to be giving well. If you give from an empty cup,
Mm,
just in my humble opinion, you can end up feeling a bit resentful. So give when you can and make allowances when you can't, because you will be able to come back stronger. You
mm,
raised a point which is interesting, and I've seen this a few times with people on the show, survivors on the show. When you mentioned just then, Ty, about having the abuse still continuing,
mm,
what sometimes the audience be prepared for this, please. There's a little myth out there that the child sexual abuse stopped when people were children.
mm,
Not always. And sometimes as young adults, or even as slightly older adults, that abuse can continue from that same perpetrator. And I I think it's really important to just breathe through that. I know it feels like, is that even possible? Is it a thing? Yes, it is. And not many people will disclose that or talk about it easily, do they, Ty? Because the shame is magnified.
yeah.
But I guess one thing I would say before I bring it back to you, Ty, is this. The age you were when the abuse first began will be the age you feel as the abuse continues. So whether you're 22 or 28 and the abuse continues with that person, you're still going to feel like the 9-year-old when it began. So we need to just have love and empathy for those survivors in our lives who have maybe experienced that or not able to share that. What do you think, Ty?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's why I want to discuss that a little bit. That it may be in the past for the people that I'm supporting, but it's not for all supporters that are still watching or
For all
experience.
survivors, you mean?
Um, to be a supporter for the survivor and witnessing and seeing that the survivor's still surviving it, like
Yeah.
and how to um, be on that journey as well to try and seek help because it's really hard as well for survivors to find the help and even supporters to give the help during that situation. Yeah, yeah,
Does
that's,
it feel confusing to you as a supporter? Confusing because the survivor or survivors you may be referring to could be adults and your age even, and the fact that the abuse continues, does that feel confusing to you? Because I know for some of our audience, they're going to think, what, how, what, is that even possible?
yeah.
But yeah, are you able to talk to us a little bit about that?
Um, no, that doesn't surprise me.
Okay.
As my my background with psychology, I understand why it still carries on. There is trauma bonds that have been connected between the victim and the abuser, and there is also shame, familial shame. You don't want to bring upon your whānau, and there's also a lot of familiarity. You can end up having a Stockholm syndrome where you actually normalize the relationship and you don't know any different.
Yeah.
There is all kinds of aspects as to why it still carries on from childhood into adulthood. Um, I'm so grateful that all the survivors I know had been able to be survivors as current from those awful situations. But yeah, it's still happening out there in the world, and um, it's why we are here, right? It's why we have these discussions, and these are why we have these spaces that we want to hold and have survivors speak their stories, because there is no shame. There is no shame on survivors. It is the shame that was put upon survivors.
And as you and I are speaking, Ty, we are on behalf of those beautiful survivors still experiencing this as adults. We are handing the shame back. And this is why the advocacy and the voices and the kind of mahi and the mana for all of those experiencing, we stand with you and support you. So just finally, as we're moving into close, Ty, is there anything left unsaid or anything you would like to share with the audience?
I just want to say a massive ngā mihi. Thank you for having me on this beautiful space. Thank you for having also my sister on this space. This is something that we both are very big advocates for. It's been a part of her life, my life, upbringing, that we get to actually be vulnerable and actually share our stories so that other people can share their story. And I'm really happy to share this with all the people that you have on this platform, and hopefully we can welcome more people that are coming into the light. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Hey, please stay right there, Ty. Don't go away. Well, audience, there's a lot to process and absorb and understand. And there's a few things we've heard tonight which I think are really, really powerful. And one is that, the intergenerational trauma bond does exist. It can exist. It can be unconscious. It can be conscious. But the point is, it's there. And you'll see it play out if you observe that. I think the other thing Ty talked about was really, I'm paraphrasing, but filling your own cup first gives you then, I think, more ability to give freely and with compassion and no real agenda. So pretty powerful. You gotta love this supporter. And to all you beautiful supporters out there, thank you for seeing us as survivors. So as we end, I just want to say, stand with you, see you, believe you, and we're always here to support. Please do like, subscribe, and share this video. Thank you.